All right, so Chris and Jake, you guys just revealed Firewatch at your PAX. You guys have been working on it for the past
9 months or so?
9 months or so at Campo Santo. You guys left your various developers at Double Fine, Telltale. So for anyone that hasn't heard of Firewatch, can you kind of catch us up on the concept of the game?
So Firewatch is set in the Wyoming wilderness, the Shoshone National Park. It is the story of this character, Henry, who has, in order to kind of put some distance between himself and some things that have been happening in his personal life, takes a job as a fire lookout in this national park. So the beginning of the game starts as you're kind of putting together some details about his life, making some choices about his life, and then starting this new job. It's like kind of summer job, basically, looking out over the wilderness for fires, which is an actual thing that people do. It used to be more common than it is now, which is why our game is set in 1989. And over the course of the game, you will be in pretty much constant communication with your supervisor, a woman named Delilah, who works in one of the neighboring towers. She will be giving you tasks to ostensibly perform this fire lookout job, but very early on, something kind of strange starts happening. You're drawn out of your tower into the world to figure out what's going on, and then the events of the game are put in motion.
So it's not about spotting fires, of course. You know,
not really. That's kind of the premise initially, but in reality, you're out in the world. Yeah, it gets subverted fast. You're out in the world doing things.
Cool. So can you kind of put together for me the sort of emergent content you guys are putting in the game versus like how you're expressing the narrative? Where does it sort of exist along that spectrum as being a sandbox game and a narrative game?
It's not
a sandbox game.
I wouldn't call it a sandbox game. What we've been trying to do, it's a narrative game, so there are events that will happen always, like there will be just plot events that always occur no matter who you are playing. But as we've been doing playtests for the game, we've been really trying to see what people are trying to do. If there are things that are not supported in the design, what do our playtesters actually think they should be able to do, or think would be funny or interesting or cool or whatever?
And also why are they trying to do that?
Exactly. What are they intending in that attempt? And then we say, okay, how can we reflect that intent back to the player by actually supporting what they're trying to do in a way that's funny or cool or surprising, or subverts what they were trying to do, or supports it, or reinforces it, or whatever. And so the emergence is kind of coming in the design process as we try and react to what people who play the game actually want to do. And so it's less that the game is like a big open sandbox and more that we want the game to be responsive to players. We want the game to acknowledge what players are trying to do and support it, and kind of encourage the player to interact with the world and try and be part of the world.
But surely you have to draw a line somewhere, right?
Yeah,
like beyond building an actual Wyoming 1989 simulation in the wilderness. So, and you guys aren't building a survival game by any means,
right? It's not a survival game. No, it's definitely sort of narrative and exploration focused. The sort of big beats of the story are very similar for all different players, but the way that they play through them and how they sort of choose to interpret the events will hopefully change people's read on the situation as they go. But it is very much, you are playing as a specific person who goes out there and something happens to them, and you as the player are sort of the conduit through which all that happens. You're not like chopping down trees to build a fortress that you survive in for 3 weeks in the woods or something. It's about Henry's experience going through this, the relationship you're building with your supervisor, and sort of digging through this strange stuff that's happening to you and trying to figure out how that's all going on, both to you and to Delilah over the course of this story.
So as Henry, what kind of problem solving or situations am I going to have to deal with? What verbs am I going to have out in the wilderness?
A lot of your verbs have to do with traversal and, going. If you saw the gameplay demo, and the trailer, there's a little bit of that, rappelling, kind of jumping over kind of obstacles in the world, things like that. And then, the single biggest mechanic is the radio. The point of the radio is to be the way you communicate with Delilah, and also the way, in a lot of cases, the way you express your own reactions to things in the world. And so that's been a huge, huge, huge focus in the design and development process, is figuring out how to get the radio to be just like an extension of kind of the player's psyche via Henry.
So it seems like there's also, from following your guys' development blog, there's an emphasis on how you guys make interesting sort of mundane actions like opening a lock, keying in the combination with that, and that you know, you guys aren't exactly putting together a game that's combat focused or like
not at all.
has that kind of mechanical emphasis.
We are not only kind of not doing that, we are 100% not doing that.
100%. So, so that's the question. Like, how do you make? You know, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but how do you make, you know, a game without combat physically interesting and like interacting with objects and, you know, like representing the physicality of that?
I mean, I think a lot of that's on James, our animator. He's a really good animator. If you ever seen his like Dance Fortress 2 or Half-Life, if you look up James Benson Half-Life on YouTube, you'll find his incredible animation work. And so a lot of it is like getting the tactile nature of that and the sort of physicality represented, because you can see your hands, you can see your feet, you know, you can get that sense that you're a body in a world. With stuff like the lockbox, like I'm trying to make the Foley sounds kind of satisfying and chunky and like give you that sense of feedback.
Yeah, it's funny, both he and Will Armstrong, our gameplay programmer, they have somewhat different philosophies about a lot of this stuff, but they generally are both two guys who have done a lot of work and a lot of thinking about just making actions of any kind in a game feel really satisfying, and it's been interesting to watch them bring all that knowledge to bear on things like that. Like that in the demo when Henry does open the lock and throw the thing open, it feels nice, but it's someone after the demo walked up to us and said, "Wait, did you put in a whole unlocking mechanic just so that you could type 1, 2, 3, 4 into every combination lock in the game?" And I'm like, yes, that is what we did.
So tell me more about your production process and the design you want of this forest, of this Wyoming wilderness setting. I mean, you guys went out to Yosemite a couple months ago, I think, as a group, or, you know, as a sort of research project. You got Sean on the team, who grew up in Wyoming, I guess. Nels also did. So
the game actually takes place in a part of Wyoming that's basically somewhere between Jackson and Cody, Wyoming. And Nels grew up in Jackson, and Sean grew up in Cody. So these guys have both sort of been all over this part of the world. But yeah, we also took a company camping trip out to Yosemite for a few days. Like there have been a number of just random outdoor research expeditions by the team, but a lot of the look actually just came from. I mean, look. We live in an age of the internet. You can go on Google image search and find thousands and thousands of reference photos. So I think a lot of it was Ollie just poring over a ton of that stuff and then just sort of trying to come up with what are the shapes that are interesting, what sort of things in it can you sort of pop out. And in the specific details, it all looks very stylized, but if you just see a big wide shot of nature, we want it to still just feel real and large and have that same sort of just grandiose sweeping feeling that you actually get when you climb up to a peak when you're out hiking in the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, if you look at the shape of a stick or if you look at the way that the light catches the rocks, we don't want those to feel photoreal. They should feel like there's style and intent to them.
So following this reveal of PAX, have you guys figured out what sort of the next step of, you know, showing more of the game's going to be? You guys are coming out in 2015?
Coming out in 2015, and we'll be showing some more of it sometime probably next year will be the next time there's a big bump. I mean, like.
Well, we've also been kind of releasing lots of little bits of stuff on our, like, if you go to blog.camposanto.com, we've just been, all throughout development, even before this unveiling, we've been putting out little bits of stuff and bits about process, and so occasionally just like little shots from the game or GIFs of just funny things from the game. We're trying to not be just like the button-down black box developer, because we don't really have to be. There's no one is making us be that, so we figure it's more fun to just kind of like throw stuff out there from time to time. So we'll just, now that the game's revealed, we can do even more of that. So.
Yeah, every now and then there is sort of a big like bottleneck where you get a ton of the game done, or there's an event or something, and then we'll like do a huge update like this. But yeah, on our blog.
That takes a lot of work. Like it takes so much work to get ready for something like this. So most of the time it's fun to just like put up some little things here and there, and
All right, well, we're looking forward to the game, guys.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up this interview the way we have been at PAX by having you sign a ridiculous laptop.
We will sign this laptop.
I also want to get Ollie Moss in here. Ollie, he's like over our shoulder. Famed internet
sign a cool laptop
artist. He probably has an awesome
signature.
It's
from the Republic of Gaming.
We have this brand laptop.
Oh,
it's fucking awesome.
Our
game demo was presented on a Republic of Gamers laptop.